Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out, and a special thanks to my Patreon and channel members. The series starts in the late 2100s. We see Earth has turned into an apocalyptic wasteland as a man is riding on the wing of a jet in the air. He looks down saying that he found him. He jumps off, and starts to descend to the ground. We see a man running away carrying something in his hand, and he yells asking if somebody is there to help him. A monster appears before him, and one is now behind him. He's about to straight up get Eiffel Towered, and he begs for help, pleading for legit anyone to help him. And we hear a voice saying that to the ones who turn the world into this they need to pay. As they hear the sound of something dropping and they look up. As the man descends from the sky he lands on top of one of the monsters, while his attack hits the other one, and kills them both. He tells the man to forgive him for being late. The dude asks who the hell he is. The guy doesn't answer, but the man starts to cry saying finally they can take back their world though. He says yes, and tells him to rest in peace. Since it turns out that bro actually had a fatal wound on his back. With tears in his eyes he thanks him before losing all of his strength, and he dies on the spot. The man looks regretful. Until we hear someone else asking if he was too late. And we learn the man's name is Jin. The other man is named Kagura. Kagura says he was likely the last survivor in this entire area. He tells Jin to give up, and he needs to face the truth. Humanity is finished, the planet is overrun so they are definitely cooked. The monsters were born from constant environmental pollution, causing mutated monsters called corruptors to appear. Possessing incredible regenerative power that couldn't be wiped out even with nukes. Still they didn't give up. Repeatedly conducting human experiments they finally found a way to fight back. But there's no one left to save anymore, and they were just too late. Jin says there still is something worth saving. Kagura asks if he really thinks there are survivors out there, and Jin says no. But he knows that there will be in the future. Since those nanomachines he created heal the environment too. Kagura says that's true. Jin explains to us that this means that they don't just destroy the corruptor's regeneration, but they also trigger the recovery of the planet. And that means one day the planet will regain its former beauty, and at that time a civilization will surely thrive again just like humanity did. Kagura tells him that's quite the fairy tale, but Jin says he's fine believing in that. And perhaps that tiny possibility is enough for him. Jin though says that his power might be needed in the future, and believing in that word perhaps might just save the future itself. And Kagura puts him into a pod, and says that that chance is enough for him too. Now cold sleep has been activated, and the years start to go by. Holy shit, it's Godzilla. 300 years. 1,000. 5,000. 9,000. Even 50,000. It goes on until the numbers reach the millions. Slowly but surely the Earth was being healed and populated with non-monster life. And after 100 million years the cold sleep release sequence was activated. It turns out there are people. We see a little girl running for her life, and some other beast folk are as well from a monster. The chubby one asks the girl if she's sure that he's here, and she says that he is. The other boy says that if he isn't there they're as good as dead. She tells him that he's here, and she knows it, and the guardian god is surely behind these doors. When they enter the room what they see is actually a dead end. The girl's heart starts to drop as the monster barges into the room. They start to wonder what to do, and the girl starts to scream begging for the guardian god to help. The glass shatters. Jin says understood as something flies through the room hitting the monster in the head. And he says that he knew believing was worth it. As he exits the pod he says that the possibilities of the future are endless. A little later, Jin says as expected of the storage box Kagura developed, his clothes are still here just as they were back then. He says that most of it is corrupted, and it's impressive that this place was even preserved in the first place. This also must be thanks to the nanomachines dispersed in the atmosphere. What he actually has with him is a nanomachine injector, but he wants to know what's become of this world. The only thing he can rely on is this message cube Kagura left behind, but before that he wants to hear the kids' stories. As he turns, the chubby one covers the little girl's eyes, and he says that he low-key forgot he had no clothes on. As he's been naked for the last 100 million years, he suits back up, and says that this shit still feels perfect. They eventually exit the bunker. How the fuck did they open those doors? But anyways he has to cover his eyes from the sun. And he's surprised, and he says that the world 100 million years later looks beautiful, it's completely different from before. The little girl calls him guardian god, telling him to follow her, and the rest. As they start to leave he wonders if they're humans, but says that humanity should have gone extinct 100 million years ago. And it means there must have been another creature that evolved over time to resemble humans to some degree, and they most likely have been affected by nanomachines. And the fact that the same language from 100 million years ago still works is good proof. He then says, come to think of it, he has not introduced himself yet. He tells them that his name is Shido Jin, but they can just call him Jin. The little girl says that her name is Hakama Phil, and he can just call her Hakama. The chubby boy's name is Danpo, and the other kid is Shandy. Jin asks what they want him to do. Hakama says that they're almost there, and they want him to defeat the corruptors. He wonders if they're the same ones he knows. And when they get to the village, Shandy is horrified because that shit is set on fire. He runs in calling for his parents, and Jin thinks about it. He says they have wooden barricades, and wooden buildings, and civilization does not seem very advanced. As he enters the town, Hakama looks horrified, and yells out for her grandma, who's fighting off the roach in your friend's kitchen at 3 a.m. She's also just as surprised, asking why the hell she came back. Jin says that it looks just like the corruptors from his time period, and he's surprised that they're called the same thing in this era. Her grandma tells her to run, but Hakama says that she's going to stand on business, and save her. As she starts to have energy flowing around her, Jin recognizes it, and he says that he'll confirm it now. He quickly closes the gap with the corruptor hitting it, and grabs Hakama's grandma, and carries her away, telling Hakama to let it rip. A fireball starts to form in her hand. She shoots it out, hitting the corruptor, and it blasts it. Jin says, as expected, it's the regenerative suppression caused by nanomachines, and the corruptor cells have no sign of regeneration. He wonders if she used the nanomachines in the atmosphere, but says they should only be controllable by compatible humans. He asks the grandma if anyone in this era can do that fireball. She says no, but is confused on why he says this era. She tells him only some of them can, and it's those born with divine power. In this village there were only 4 of them, including her. Jin says that must be what they call the ability to control nanomachines. Hakama runs over asking about everyone else, and her grandma says she evacuated them. But more importantly, she wants to know why they came back. As the village is already finished, the corruptor earlier was only a newborn. The main body is something they can no longer deal with, and soon the other corruptors are going to swarm the village in great numbers. We hear a man telling her to stop getting weak on them. His name is Sarlis, and he says he'll kill a corruptor like that himself. The grandma asks what about the villagers, and he says he sent them to the shelter. Hakama's dad is also here, and she runs over excited to see him. He says she wasn't in the shelter, so he was worried, asking where she went. She tells them she went to the sealed door. Her grandma yells, asking if she really went to that forbidden place. Hakama says that her grandma told her that behind the door is the guardian god of this village, and when danger threatens the village someday it'll surely help them. That's how she found Jin. The grandma is surprised, since he doesn't look like a god at all, and besides he's not even the same species. Even Sarlis picks on him, and laughs, saying that there's no way that inferior species is the guardian god. Jin asks what he means by inferior species. Shandy runs over because that's his brother, and he tells him that this person is the guardian god. Sarlis says he wondered where Shandy went, and he tells the rest to look at his ears. He's an inferior species with no animal power. Sarlis says they're probably just misunderstanding because he happened to be there. Shandy says that's not true, he defeated a corruptor. Sarlis laughs, saying they must be talking about the larva, and he can kill it in a single blow too. He points his spear at Jin, telling him to listen well, as this is their village's problem, and outsider inferior species aren't welcome. And if surely now he understands that he shouldn't stick his nose where it doesn't belong. As he starts to leave, Hakama's dad asks where he's going. He says it's obvious he's gonna go kill that huge corruptor while they stay here shaking in fear. Grandma yells, saying that if he runs away he might at least be able to survive still. Jin wonders why he's yapping so much. The grandma says she doesn't know who he is, but is glad he helped. And if he's willing he could take her son, and escort the children to the shelter, as she will follow Sarlis, and take a gamble with her life. Jin says he refuses since he has pride too, and he won't let someone call him an inferior species, then die without knowing that he's him. We see the corruptor off in the distance, in some doo-doo piss water. Sarlis calls out to it, and says that he's the one who will carry this country on its back, and he will become a holy knight. As he starts to prepare an attack with his spear, he says that an invader like this is something that he could easily take down himself. As he runs in, the corruptor raises its tentacles, giving birth to multiple little larvae who fall into the water, and leap at Sarlis. He quickly deals with the 2 of them, saying that they are in his way, and he is going to finish this with a single blow. He leaps off the ground, flying into the air, and cuts across its face, leaving a pretty serious impact. He grins, thinking the fight is over, as the monster begins screaming and flailing. He lands behind it, but it instantly begins to regenerate. He is surprised by this, and it comes in with its claw. He closes his eyes out of fear, but when he slowly opens them, he is surprised to see Jin in front of him, who blocked the attack with a barrier. And he asks if he feels better now. Sarlis gets pissed, asking what he is doing here, as more of the little babies attack him from behind, and he has to backstep the attacks. They must have been the ones he thought he killed earlier. Jin slowly raises his hand, then snaps his fingers as a beam of light pierces both of the monsters, killing them in an instant. Sarlis asks what that is, and what the hell he did. We hear Danpo telling the grandma to look over, and Shandy starts calling out for his older brother. Hakuma's grandma and father are both surprised, asking what the hell just happened, as they see he is holding the monster back with a single hand. Jin says it's starting to get heavy, and they should back up for now. He grabs Sarlis and backpedals, dodging the attack. Sarlis is surprised they are so high in the air, and asks him who exactly he is. Rather, he asks him what the hell he is. Jin tells them that even if he damages the corruptors, they instantly regenerate, and that's why they need nanomachines to inhibit the regeneration. Sarlis asks what a nanomachine is, and Jin says it's what they call divine power. His attack just now was good, but the wound wasn't deep enough to stop the regeneration. Sarlis realizes that he might have judged him too early, asking if he is really their guardian god. Jin says he doesn't remember becoming a god, but there is something he wanted to say. Before, he called this the village's problem. Sarlis says exactly, and that's why he has to deal with it. But Jin says that's not right, as this is his problem. The monster starts flailing its tentacles, and Jin bobs and weaves between them. First, his plan is to immobilize it. As he traps the corruptor, Jin explains that these things are monsters born because they were foolish. And since he lived 100 million years ago as well, he is the one who has to settle this, because they are originally his problem. Sarlis says he doesn't get what he's saying, but asks if he can really do it. Jin says he can, because he is the result of countless unimaginable repetitions that carries humanity's brutal and tragic blood-stained history. He is most likely the last human on this planet. As he launches a beam attack at the corruptor, at first it doesn't do anything. The next second there is a giant light, and we see it actually starts to disintegrate the shit out of the monster. They are surprised, and Hakuma knew she was right, because the attack blasts up into the sky itself, leaving their planet, and clears all of the clouds above them, some one-punch man shit. As this is the last scientific weapon created by humanity too. Off in the distance we see a woman saying that she came to investigate the new invaders appearing near Kodama village, but she just saw something unbelievable. She wonders what that even was, or if the Knight Captain of the royal capital could even do something like that. She starts to get really excited, saying that she needs to return to the royal capital immediately. Some time later, we see Jin getting a message from Kagura, and he says that if he's listening to this, he's probably no longer in this world. And he's always really wanted to say that line. He wonders how the future is, as the global environment should have improved significantly, but there's still a problem. And he'll cut straight to the chase. Even if the world's environment improves, the corruptors won't die out. Kagura explains he started feeling that something was off. After 1,000 years of Jin sleeping, he periodically went to cold sleep also, to observe the world's changes. And with the improvement of the environment, the number of corruptors was steadily decreasing. However, what he saw was no joke, as the corruptors have evolved as well. As he spotted a humanoid version of one. And this was something that he never could have calculated. And he doesn't know what kind of changes there will be, but they will for sure become a threat. All he could do was tweak the newly born life form so they could fight back against the corruptors little by little, and leave some power behind for him. Jin says of its power he must be talking about this little syringe. Kagura explains that once he injects it, the nanomachines will show him how to use it. Through bodily modifications, it's a power only he can use, as he's 100% compatible with the nanomachines. He looks down at his hand as a blade starts to appear out of it. Jin says it's pretty handy, as it seems that he can generate objects through the shape-shifting nanomachines. Kagura says he had power-ups like that in research labs all over the world. The reason he didn't put them all in one place is just in case, to prevent them from all being destroyed at the hand of the corruptors. And he wanted him to travel, and see the world as well in the far distant future. He doesn't know what kind of threat the corruptors will have become, but even so, compared to what the world of the past was, it should be much better now. He really hopes he enjoys his time while ridding the world of corruptors. But the first thing he should do is enjoy the world. He won't be able to see it through to the end though, because he stopped putting himself in the sleep chamber. Jin is surprised by how much he aged. Kagura says he's leaving the world in his hands. Jin says he understands, and sounds a bit bitter. Hakama runs over, and Danpo's there too, saying that everybody was looking for him. They tell him to quickly head back since they can't start without the star of the show. Jin looks over, spotting a lab access key on Hakama's neck, and asks where she got it. This was given to her clan a long time ago by a great person. It's a charm passed down for generations, and they said that when danger puts the village at risk, as long as they have this, the guardian deity will protect them. Jin smiles, saying now he understands how she got into that room, and he guesses that he owes Kagura big time. The town starts to have a little celebration. Danpo's hurrying Jin over. But the other villagers are wondering if that's the guardian deity, saying it has to be a joke, as he's definitely an inferior species. They laugh, asking if that scrawny guy really defeated the corruptor. Sarlis stands up, and starts whacking them. Jin spots it as Sarlis yells, saying that they ran away so they wouldn't know. The guardian deity is amazing. Danpo and Hakama jokingly say that his personality had a complete 180. The grandmother walks over, saying that this is where he's been, and she's been looking for him. Hakama's dad's there too, and she says that once again she would like to express her gratitude on behalf of the village. Hakama's dad says that if he hadn't been there, the village would have perished, and they want to repay that debt. Jin says not to worry about it. Hakama's dad tries to tell them to let them repay him, but he says that if they insist, instead of goods he wants information. He wants to know the detailed state of this world. The grandmother says that in that case it would be best for him to head to the royal capital. She says that it's where the king who rules this country, Kermosia, resides. Because various people gather there from all over the country, they should be well informed about the state of the world as well. The people of this Kodama village also frequently visit to sell their specialty goods made from wood silkworm thread. The journey is long and rough, but since it's him, he should be fine. Jin says he doesn't know where it is though. The granny says that he can use Hakama as his guide, as she also has business in the royal capital. Jin asks what kind of business, and the granny says that he's seen it as well, since she can wield divine power. And in the royal capital there is an academy for enhancing that divine power. The next day in the village the sun rises, and Jin says that the air is really fresh, much different than the world he lived in before. And who would have thought that a day would come when he could behold such a sight? And he wishes he could have shown this to Kagura too. Shandy is holding some clothes, telling him to put this shit on because he's out here flashing the village. And later it's time for him to finally depart. Granny is telling Hakama that she needs to fulfill her role as a guide. Sarlis says he thought he could learn various things by being by the guardian deity's side. But Granny says he needs to study first. Jin tells him that his movements weren't bad the other day, and he'll be waiting in the royal capital. Sarlis gets excited, saying that he'll work hard on his studies. Hakama's dad tells him to take good care of his daughter, and then tells her to make sure she takes good care of her health. They wave bye to them as they head out on their adventure. They follow the river, and get to experience a waterfall. And when they crest over the hill, Hakama's pointing at the sun setting. They finally set up a camp, and Jin asks how far the royal capital is. She says they have to walk for another 4 days, and he says that it's closer than he thought. She then asks why he wants to know about the world. He tells her it's a secret. And he's just thinking about Kagura's words on how the corruptors didn't become extinct. And he says that he already knows this to be true since he's seen them. But they should originally only be able to breed in heavily polluted environments. However, that place was not polluted at all, and he can tell that things are slowly changing. Hakama tells him he's making a scary face, and he apologizes, saying that he was lost in thought. But Jin says at the very least there are definitely people living in this era who haven't been dominated by the corruptors. And first he wants to investigate how the people living in this era deal with them. And he can investigate the corruptors little by little later. He asks if she could stop calling him guardian deity too. And she asks what she should call him then, and he says his name. They continue for a bit until someone on a horse pulls up. They both turn, and the man says that he's sorry to interrupt their rest, asking if he can have a moment. He looks down at Jin, and Jin asks who he is. He says he is the Royal Capital Holy Knights Order 7th Division Captain, and his name is Argus Walton. Jin asks what a Holy Knight is, and says that must be the ones he heard mentioned in the village. The woman riding with Argus gets pissed, and yells, asking what kind of attitude he thinks he is speaking to the captain like that. And he should at least stand up. She continues bitching, saying that these have to be the guys. But Argus tells her to shut up, and apologizes to Jin for speaking on horseback, saying it was rude of him asking if they can have a talk. Jin wonders what she was talking about. Argus says that his subordinate was really rude, but first he'd like him to answer, then he asks where he's come from, and where he's headed. Hakama says they're from Kodama village, and they're on their way to the royal capital. Argus asks if she's certain. Karina starts to smile, saying that it's just as she thought, and it has to be them, and there is no record of inferior species being born in Kodama village, and that they slipped up. Jin says that he didn't expect them to have birth records in a country like this, and they're much more organized than he thought. Argus tells her that that's not the case, because the clothes she's wearing are a specialty product of Kodama village even in the royal capital. They are traded at high prices as high-quality clothing, and the Kodama cloth tailored for children rarely appear on the market, so her claim of being from the village is likely true. Karina starts to freak out, and Argus draws his blade, saying that he knows this man is not the same. He has unfamiliar clothes, and he asks where they're from. As there have been records of bandits using children to steal cargo recently on the road from Kodama village to the royal capital. And they commit crimes while feigning harmlessness, just like they were doing just now. Hakama says that it's not them. Argus says that he's the one who'll make judgment. Hakama gets frustrated, and starts to release divine power. Argus stares at her, and then tells her not to try anything foolish. As she gets surrounded with floating swords. He says he didn't think she would possess divine power, but she seems promising. Jin says he understands now, and the holy knights are strong. Argus asks him once more where he came from, saying depending on his answer he will cut him down right here. Jin stares at him. And low-key it looks like Argus sweats a bit. Jin sighs, saying that he came from Kodama village. Karina yells, saying that's such a lie, but Argus sheathes his weapon, saying he sees. He asks Hakama if he's lying, and she says that he's actually the guardian deity of the village. Argus says he sees, and turns away. Jin asks if they're done, and Argus says they are. This is part of the job, so he hopes he can forgive his rudeness. Karina says there's no way he's letting him go, and Argus asks if he's headed to the capital. Jin says he is, and Argus says in that case they'll probably be able to meet again. If he ever runs into trouble he can come seek him out, and hopefully he can overlook this situation. He then goes to take his leave. Karina asks if he's serious, and yells, and Jin's just glad that it resolved peacefully. On their way back, Karina asks why he backed down there, as there's no doubt he was suspicious. She calls him an inferior species again. Argus thinks about it, and he says that he wonders which one of them was actually the inferior species. Karina asks what he's talking about, and the other woman finally speaks up, saying that she agrees with Argus. We learn that her name is Power. Karina asks what she's talking about, and Power asks if she really didn't notice the difference in power between them, and him. Argus says he attacked him 3 times, but each and every time he even thought about taking action he could tell that Jin would have defeated him before he could have acted. Power asks if he used his divine power, and Argus says he did, but it didn't even activate. He attacked him just like he did that girl, but the spirits didn't lend him their power. Power says it was the same for her. Karina asks what that means, and Argus says it simply means there is just a massive gap in their divine power. And someone capable of a feat like that out of all the holy knights would only be the Grand Captain. Karina gets pissed, saying she never noticed. Argus says that it's just that he was too much of an anomaly, and that she's only just joined the squad, so it's okay. They then ask Argus regarding the corruptor in Kodama village if he was the one who took it out. Argus says that is most likely the case. Karina asks if they can leave him be as it seems dangerous. Argus says he doesn't know his origins, but he didn't seem to pose a threat, so they can keep an eye on him for now. Power says more importantly they have to head back. Argus agrees, saying even though they finished the corruptor incident early they can't be away any longer. Power says she will arrange for the bandits' subjugation through the guild, and Argus says he's counting on her. He starts to think about how she called him the guardian deity of the village. Argus says that if he were to become an ally he might prove helpful for the major problems this country will face. On the next day Jin says that yesterday was pretty interesting, and he asks Hakama if all of the knights in the royal capital have that level of ability. She says that was a special case. Among the knights only the elite are gathered into the holy knights, and only the elite can become the captains. And the activation speed of his spirit magic was on a completely different level. Jin asks what she means by spirit magic, and she says it's the power to borrow the strength of spirits. It's called divine power. The techniques activated using that power are spirit magic. He says he understands, and that the nanomachines are treated as spirits, and in this era science is fantasy. But he keeps hearing the inferior species thing. And he asks Hakama about it, saying that it seems that there are all sorts of species in this era. Hakama says there are. Some have appearances close to fish, and some are close to insects. And a long time ago there were limited places where they could live. Her granny said that everyone changed into a body suitable for the regions they could live in. Jin realizes that if it was changes that made them adapt to the environment, that means people actually existed 100 million years ago, and those humans had evolved. But right now he doesn't know if it's worth thinking about, because he has more questions. He asks if that means that there are those who didn't change, and are the inferior species. She says there are. And compared to them who adapted to the environment, and changed, they were deemed inferior, as their nicknames suggest. And they were treated very coldly by others. And many inferior species are sold off as slaves. Jin is surprised by this, and she says there isn't actually that much of a difference. And it's strange for them to change how they treat someone just because they're a little different, and everyone is crazy. He says that she's a surprisingly good person, and she wonders what he's talking about. Somebody wobbles out in front of them asking for help as they fall to their knees. Hakama runs over asking if they're okay. And Jin is just surprised because their ears are completely normal, and he might have found a human. Jin looks down at the girl who is struggling to breathe, and he says that these are terrible injuries, and she is covered in bruises. Hakama asks if she is okay, and Jin says that he will treat her right now. The girl's eyes open widely, and she tells him not to move. She holds a blade up to Hakama's throat, saying that if he does she will kill her. Jin now understands what happened because of his meeting with Argus. He says that it's a perfect trap, which means that the rest are close, and there has to be someone else nearby who would have forced this. A man appears out of seemingly nowhere, and tells the girl, who we learn is named Pawful, that she did a good job, and she did just as he said. Jin says that stealth camouflage captures the surrounding imagery, and is a nanomachine function that makes one appear transparent. The drawback is that the transparency breaks when you move, but they used it well. The bandit tells him he's dressed in nice clothes for an inferior species, asking what country he's from. He then warns him not to move, and Hakama yells out for him. The bandit says he surely knows what will happen if he does move, and Hakama starts to activate her divine power. Jin yells out her name, making her stop, and he says that power isn't meant to be pointed at people, and surely she understands that. She tries to plead with him, but the bandit says this is a jackpot to think that she actually has holy power. They ask Jin if he can use it too, and he says he wonders. One of them kicks him in the chest, knocking him onto the floor, telling him to stop getting cocky. The leader tells him not to damage the merchandise, and the dude says that an inferior species won't fetch for a high price anyways. The leader says that he might have holy power though, and the dude who kicked Jin says there's no way he would have that. Hakama gets scared, realizing that these are the bandits that Argus mentioned, and they are slave traders. The leader tells Hakama to go to sleep for a bit as he's angry. She realizes that if she's captured like this, she'll be sold as a slave. As she falls asleep, then she wakes up to Jin calling her name over and over. She jolts up against the edge of the cage, and they ask if she's okay. She says she's fine, but more than that, she wants to know where they are. He says the base of the people who attacked them. Everybody here was attacked the same way, and it seems that they're all being gathered here. Some of them are severely emaciated and injured, and the rest are horrified. She looks over at Jin, asking why the hell he's naked, and he says that they stripped his clothes because they were rare, though they let him keep his underwear. Though it's not like he would have cared either way. She says he's being way too calm about this. He says he's actually spent most of his life naked, and she says that she's talking about being in a cage, calling him stupid, but asks why he didn't resist, as he should have easily been able to defeat them. Then the door opens, and a man tells Pawful to get it over with, and Jin and the rest look over. She's bringing them food. But Pawful's surprised they're awake already. Hakama yells, asking why the hell she did this, and Pawful tells her that it's fine to hate her, as she doesn't expect to be forgiven, as she never planned for that from the start. Hakama is really frustrated, and Jin says he can tell that Pawful's kind. She asks what he's talking about, and he says that a real villain doesn't spend time thinking about whether they're hated or not, or if they want to be forgiven. They don't give it a second thought. He then stands up, saying that he's tired of playing this game. He grabs onto the bars, and she's surprised as he starts ripping them apart. As he's now out of the cage, he says he was waiting for her to come so now they can talk without being overheard. She asks why, and he asks who is important to her that is being held captive. She asks how he knows this. He says he just took a guess. At first he was fooled too, because the wounds of hers are real, but even a villain wouldn't use a comrade by inflicting such injuries. As he heals her, he says that's when he realized right away that she was only following them because they had leverage over her. She's scared, but realizes that he might be able to help her, and tells him that it's her brother as they have him. They plan to sell him to the traders, and separate them for life. They killed her father and mother, but she has to protect her brother no matter what, as he is all she has left. Hakama realizes that she was wrong in her judgment of her, and Jin is pissed, calling them scum. Hakama asks if he got caught on purpose to save her, and he says there's that, but villains are stubborn and persistent, and they're a lot like oil stains. Hakama asks what that even means. He says that if you let one escape, they'll expand their influence somewhere else, and cause trouble again. So if he's going to crush them, he has to do it with force, and rip them out by their roots very thoroughly to make sure they can't spread ever again. Jin explains that if it's about villains, he knows more than anyone. Over 100 million years ago, before the Earth fell into ruin, we see they were in a cyberpunk era. And when he was a kid, he also yearned for justice, but he realizes that was just the emotion of a child. A world that needs justice is filled with trash-like people to the point that we're overflowing with them. If he could live normally, there's nothing better than that. But the environment he lived in didn't allow it, so it's something he adapted to. As we hear the sound of snapping, we see he broke an adult's wrist as a child, and he says he realized he had to crush them. That's how he got through life. He was continuously crushing scum from a very early age into his teens, and eventually into adulthood. At some point he realized that the best way to crush them was killing them one after the other. Until one day he was told he was born into the wrong world by none other than Kagura. Back to the present, he's dragging a guard by the hair, and the rest tell him to stop asking what his purpose is, and where he came from. Jin laughs, and throws the guy forward toward the rest, and one of the men catches him. But he closes the gap to the other guy, and rocks his shit with a single punch, surprising his friend as he now has a dent in his skull, and he's crushed into the wall. The dude asks who he is, and Jin walks over to him as the man screams so loudly "Powerful," and the rest can hear it from downstairs. She realizes that it was one of the guards asking who the man she came with is. Hakama says that it's their guardian deity, and he's a god. Powerful tells her to get real, but Hakama says she is serious. If they leave it to Jin, it'll be fine. For now, as Jin said, everybody needs to go outside. Powerful wonders if they're really going to be saved since the leader actually has strong divine power, and she doesn't know if he'll be able to win by brute force. Of course we see the leader cowering in fear, asking Jin if he wants money or something else because he can even give him slaves, as he points to a bunch of children. One of them looks similar to Powerful, and he can tell that's her brother. Jin looks annoyed, then crushes the guard in his hand, and asks if he's done talking yet. The leader, terrified, wonders what's going on, and why his spirit magic is not working, or rather what kind of power this guy has in the first place. Jin says that it helps that he's a half-baked villain because the real ones run away immediately, and someone like him who first looks down on their opponent, and assumes they can win, are always satisfying to crush. And because right when they're about to lose they start sucking up. The leader grits his teeth, and starts to make a break for it, saying he has no choice. He flicks a lever saying that it's not over yet. As the wall opens, what we see in the cage is none other than a corruptor. Jin is surprised, and the leader says that this one was specially procured at the request of a certain person. As it has a humanoid-like figure, it slowly walks out, stomping the floor. The leader says that if he can't suck up to save his life, then it can't be helped. There's only one choice left, and that's for this corruptor to utterly destroy him. As it starts to scream, it raises its fist, coming in for a punch. Jin looks up at it, and blocks it with his hands. The leader is confused by what's going on since it was effortless. Jin says that he was born with what he'd call a superhuman constitution. Compared to a normal human, he has over 100 times more muscle fibers. As he kicks the corruptor into the air, he says that against one of these monsters he doesn't need to hold back, and he'll use his divine power too. As he punches forward, a beam flies out of his hand, and obliterates it instantly. The leftover meat chunks fall to the floor, and the leader is horrified, asking how the hell he can use his divine power since his isn't working. Jin says in this case he wants to know what he'll do next. The leader then asks for mercy, saying surely he'll let him go. Jin says no, and punches him straight in the face. Jin puts his clothes back on, saying that he's glad he got them back. He then tells the kids in the cage to just wait a little longer, as he'll get everyone out of here. But before he does that, he wants to make sure that he investigates a few things, because it's pointless if he has no proof of their misdeeds. He opens a drawer, finding some papers, and he says this is probably what he's looking for. He somehow reads the language, and smiles. I take that back, Bro is just as fucking confused as I am. He says that he'll have to go get Hakama to teach him how to read. But he wonders what they were trying to do by capturing the corruptor, and he decides to find out. As he puts his hand in the monster's flesh, he starts to use the cameras of the nanomachines that were drifting around the area. He says there should be a record left in the last week. He then finds something, as the slave trade guy was telling someone that he wants to know why he caught something like this in the first place. The man says that's not something he needs to know, but he supposes he'll tell him one thing. Very soon in this country something interesting is going to happen. Jin knows this is no good. Out in the town of the royal capital we see the slave traders being arrested, and all the prisoners being set free. We see Pawful and Hakama together until she spots something, as it's her little brother named Nino. He begins running over. She begins crying, running at him, and they hug one another, and she's so glad that he's okay. She thanks Jin, calling him God, and Jin says he isn't one, but then asks if the ones arresting them are affiliated with his territory. Hakama says no, they are guild staff that she had to call. That man over there is the guild master of this town. He spots Jin, and walks over asking if he's the one responsible for this. Jin says he is, and the man bows, thanking him. We learn that his name is Padrak. He thanks him for his cooperation, but he's a little wary since Jin has not a single scratch on him after taking on this many opponents. But also since he looks like an inferior species, but his instincts are screaming at him, warning that he's no ordinary man. Padrak says there were many damage reports regarding this group, and they had an endless stream of requests to exterminate them. Jin asks why the Lord doesn't take command and arrest them, and Padrak says the Lord doesn't have that much authority. The only ones who deal with these crimes are the guild staff who have sworn loyalty to the king. If the Lord, Chapian, the ruler of this land, were to commit a crime, they are obligated to report it to the king, though he highly doubts that would ever happen. Jin says to put it in terms from 100 million years ago, the Lord is like a mayor, and the guild is like the police. He wonders if Chapian is that dude he saw talking to the guy. He then tells Padrak he found some documents they had hidden, and he wants to know if it's useful or not. Padrak starts to read it, and is surprised, saying that it's a list of people who conducted business with those bandits, and with this they can round them up all at once. Jin asks if the name of the lord of this land is on there, and Padrak tells him not to take his joke from earlier seriously, as of course not. Jin wonders if he's covering for him, and says there's nothing he can do about it right now, but before that there is the issue of the freed slaves. Padrak says the ones with missing persons reports, or those with identities that are known, will be escorted home, as the guild will take responsibility for them. However, for those who don't fall into either category they can't do anything. Jin recalls these two losing their parents, asking if there are any shelters nearby. Padrak says no, and they can help them find work, but since they are inferior species it will be difficult for them to find jobs. Jin sighs, saying he wants to do something to help them, but they don't have anywhere to work. He then thinks about it, saying to wait a minute. He asks if there was a place they could work, if they would do it. Pawful and her brother shake their heads, saying yes, asking what he has in mind. He says it's the perfect place, and he recalls Argus telling him that if he needs help to find him, and Jin decides to use it for this. Meanwhile at Argus' estate he finally returns home, and gets the shivers. Power asks if there is something wrong, and he says it's nothing, he just got a sudden chill. As he gets off his horse he says this is far enough, telling them that they did great on the expedition, and to get some good rest today. As he heads inside he is welcomed back by maids and butlers, and he hands his bag to one of the butlers, asking if there are any updates. They look nervous, and Argus just wants to know if something happened. The butler says he is sorry to bother him when he must be tired, but there is something. Argus says he doesn't mind, and the butler starts telling him as we see a woman watching from upstairs, and she does not look that happy. Argus says he understands, thanking him for the report, and the butler says it's his duty. Argus says that the situation is worse than he thought. For corruptors to have appeared in the royal capital, he wonders where they got in from. Rather, he should assume that someone let them in intentionally, and in that case the most suspicious place would be the one that's full of nothing but authorized personnel, Harnisk Academy. Argus says he needs to find an ally right away. It's a good thing that Jin is about to seek him out. We learn it's been 3 days since their bandit subjugation, and as they're making their way to the capital, Pawful wonders if there's actually going to be any openings for her. Jin tells her not to sweat it, since she can read, write, and crunch numbers she'll find something in no time, and she should keep her chin up. She gets excited. Hakama then says that she can see the capital just up ahead. When they get to the edge of the cliff, Jin is surprised by how beautiful it is, seeing that it's way larger than the last town they were in. The kids look excited, and Hakama explains that it runs on imports, so everything under the sun ends up here, and that includes the specialty fabric from Kodama village. Jin says he does recall that being mentioned before, but he finds it fascinating, saying that it's a real melting pot of races and cultures, and he can see how uniquely this place has evolved. The streets are spotless, and the law and order seems solid enough that kids can run around with no fear. But he knows that it's not all roses, because when he looks over he can tell that bad deeds are still being done, but he guesses that's the baggage that comes with any era. He then asks Hakama when the academy's entrance exam is, and she says it's next week. We also spot the girl from Arga's house nearby, and she overhears this. She looks at them wondering if they're trying to enroll in Harnisk Academy, and finds it infuriating that half-breeds are coveting a place like that. That night they head to an inn, and the kids jump onto the bed getting excited. Jin says they must be happy to finally have a real bed to sleep in again. Hakama says that she is, and she starts kicking her feet. Jin says that now they've made it to the capital in one piece, which is real. There are more pressing matters. While they have some money that they got from the bandit subjugation, it's not going to last them forever, and he needs to get the kids settled into some work too. Tracking down Argus would be the shortcut, but without an inn he won't get past the front door. He then thinks about it, wondering if he should dig into the corruptors of this era first, as there are already people trying to weaponize them for their own dirty work. He understands just how much of a problem corruptors are, so he can't turn a blind eye to it, because he doesn't want to let history repeat itself and watch this world fall into ruin a second time. So he asks Hakama what people do when they want to look something up. She says they either seek out a teacher, or hit the books, but they are pricey, and back in Kodama village they all chipped in to share them. But the capital here has a library, and he can do his own digging there. Jin thinks about it, saying that's handy, and he'll make good use of it. He might even find a lead on the research facility Kagura left behind. What point is a library if your ass can't read? When they get there the receptionist says she's afraid that's out of the question, and she can't let them in. These books are national treasures, and entry isn't a free-for-all. It's strictly for students vetted by the academy, faculty, staff, and local nobility. Jin says he sees, but it's not like he would have been able to do anything inside either. Hakama brings up the fact that he can't read, so what the fuck was the point? He just smiles like a dumbass, saying that he low-key forgot, though we do learn that he has been picking up the alphabet lately, though he's nowhere close to being able to read yet. He sighs, wondering what to do now, until two people appear behind them saying that this is the group they were tasked to take care of. One of them calls out to Jin asking if he has a second, and the dude comes in with a sucker punch from behind. Jin blocks it, telling him that's quite the welcome, and here he thought the streets were safe. The dude tells him that he thought wrong, and starts to charge up his hand with divine power. Jin notices it as well, and throws his hand into the air, causing an explosion in the sky. The guy compliments his instincts, saying that they're pretty sharp. While the kids are scared, Jin asks what they want. The dude says that someone finds their presence an eyesore and inconvenient. Jin thinks about it, saying that if he was contracted to take care of them then this works out perfectly. The guy says if he vanishes from the capital he won't have to watch his back every day. Jin says that he'll only worry about that when he's actually in danger. The dude rears back his fist, telling him that it's his choice. But when he comes in for the punch, Jin grabs onto his wrist, and before the guy realizes it he's flipped over into the air onto his back. He falls unconscious after hitting his head on the floor. His homie prepares a fireball, and launches it at Jin, and that shit just bounces off of him. Of course the dude is smiling because he thinks Jin is burning alive, until Jin stretches his hand out from the smoke and grabs him by the collar. He tells him to come back when he's strong enough to actually be a threat, that is if he has the balls to try it again. The dude realizes that they fucked up, until they hear a familiar voice telling them that's enough, and ordering nobody to move. Karina walks over, saying that she can't believe people are making a scene in the middle of the road while she's trying to enjoy her day off. She says she's going to haul them all off to a cell, but as she's saying this she realizes who it is and starts to scream. Jin says that playing it loud and flashy paid off, and she freaks out realizing he's the inferior from before. She says he has some nerve causing a ruckus as soon as he arrives in the capital, and once an inferior species always one, as they never know right from wrong. A spectator calls out to Karina, saying that she just happened to be passing by, and saw what happened, and they were the ones who were suddenly attacked, so it was actually self-defense. Karina realizes that she's in the wrong, and looks over at the dudes who got their shit cooked, saying that they look familiar, and she recognizes that they are actually students from Harnisk Academy. She sighs, saying that she just hopes the young lady isn't involved, and Jin asks who she's referring to. Karina says that it's nothing, and she's talking to herself, so not to worry about it. Jin is surprised that Holy Knights patrol too, as he thought that was the guild's job. She says the royal capital is huge, and they just help maintain public order. But the truth is, she just happened to be walking past on her way to town, but now she knows for sure he is incredibly strong. Those academy students from earlier weren't weak, and he dealt with them effortlessly. She then tells him not to cause any more trouble in the capital, and he tells her to wait. If she doesn't mind, there's somewhere he'd like for her to take him. She asks where it is exactly, and we see him heading to Argus' estate as he tells Argus to hire him, as he told him to visit if he needed help. Argus says that his numbers have grown since last time, and Jin says it just kind of happened. They ran into those bandits that he warned him about, and the kids were being held captive by them, so he rescued them. Argus asks what he did about the bandits, and Jin says that he already rocked their shit, and left the rest of the guild. Argus says he sees, but he finds it surprising he took care of all of them by himself. He asks why he took the kids in, and Jin says they don't have a family, and they're an inferior species like him, so he figured he could at least find them a place to work. Argus says he doesn't think he has any obligation to look after them though. Jin says it's his way of doing things. Whatever the process was, he is the one who saved them, so he won't do a half-assed job of it, and he'll look after them until the very end. Argus and Karina realize that he might be a pretty decent dude after all, and the kids just look happy. Argus says very well, and he can have them work as servants, but Argus tells him there's a condition. He wants Jin to become an instructor. Jin asks for what? Later the kids are wearing their work uniforms. Argus says they should look the part now, and Hakama seems a bit like she wants to dress up too. Squid thanks Argus for housing them, and he says there's no need for that. He's leaving their education to the head butler and maid, and they should not discriminate against them just because they are an inferior species. Jin then waves goodbye now that he's got them all settled in, and asks Argus what the ulterior motive for having him be an instructor is. Argus says he catches on quickly, and he doesn't know his background, but he wants to trust that he is a good person, and that's why he is asking this of him. As he needs to go undercover at Harnisk Academy. Jin asks what for, and Argus says right now this country is being targeted by multiple factions aiming for supremacy. Jin asks about the king, and Argus tells him that the king is stricken with illness, and doesn't have much time left. Therefore a battle for succession has already begun behind closed doors. The problem is that people without a legitimate claim to the throne are plotting to seize this country by using the corruptors, and dragging innocent people into it. Jin says he understands now, and he guesses that Lord is not the only one he needs to watch out for. Argus tells him that such dangerous individuals are lurking, and maneuvering behind the scenes here in the royal capital, and they have to uncover their hideout as soon as possible. Jin asks if he thinks the most suspicious place for that is at the academy, and Argus says exactly. He knocks on the door telling somebody he's entering, and when he opens the door he tells Jin that this is the person who will guide him inside the academy, and it's his younger sister who attends it. We learn that her name is Milia. Argus goes to introduce Jin, but she says there's no way that this inferior species is the one he was talking about the other day, and surely he's not going to leave the academy infiltration to him. Argus tells her to show some respect, and she says the only disrespectful thing here is the existence of an inferior species being in their household. She says she could tolerate that plain-looking country girl, but this is not a job that can be entrusted to the likes of his kind. Jin sighs, saying that she's pretty prejudiced, and Argus apologizes, telling him not to take offense. Karina says while the young lady is exceptionally gifted, she's really prejudiced against other species. Jin says that Karina is the same way though. Milia asks her brother if he understands that this is not just infiltration, and he needs to fulfill his duties as an instructor. She says she doesn't believe he is capable of serving as one in the first place, or that he really has the aptitude for it. Hakama then snitches that he can't read, and Jin asks why she did that. Milia says that this is completely out of the question. Hakama says that there are many things they could learn only from Jin, as he is way more amazing than any of them. She looks at him for a second, and says that at least he seems to have the strength to keep the academy students in line, but being an instructor requires more than that. She then slams the door. Argus sighs, and even Karina does, and she says that those students the other day must have been her doing. Argus apologizes, saying that he'll give her a proper talking to later. Jin says it's fine. In the first place, as an instructor he wants to know what he would be teaching. Argus says that it would be spirit magic, and from what he can tell he is highly skilled in it, asking if he's wrong. Jin asks about what aspect of spirit magic he should teach, and Argus says just the basics. Ignition, discharge, freezing, healing. Out of these 4 basic spirit magics, if he can even do 2 of them, that's enough. Jin asks if that's really all. Argus asks if that means he's saying that he can also use special spirit magic that only a few people can. He thinks about it, wondering if he means something like the invisible magic that the bandit used, and if that was considered exceptional in this era. Jin says that's interesting, and says it's time to overturn the common sense of this era just a little bit. It jumps a whole week later, as it's now time for the entrance exam at Harnisk Academy. We see a bunch of kids being led inside, and Hakama is already sitting down at a desk. While some fat chud is leading both Argus and Jin down a hallway, he says he's glad they came, and even among the Holy Knights the 7th unit must be exceptionally busy. Argus says that it's nothing, it's simply just his turn. Jin asks what he means, and Argus says once a year one member of the Holy Knights is rotated in to serve as the Academy's special instructor. This year that duty falls on the 7th unit. Jin then wonders if someone like himself is really okay, because of course his ears aren't the same as theirs, and he can tell that this fat chud is already being prejudiced. He then guides them into a room saying that this is the headmaster's office, and we see the headmaster staring. Argus bows, telling the headmaster it's been a long time. She says that it's been a while, as the last time she recalls the meeting was when he graduated as a valedictorian, and he's become distinguished in such a short time. She's grateful for his cooperation too. Argus tells her that it's just his duty. She tells him that she's actually heard many rumors. Not only is he dealing with corruptors, but he's also entangled in domestic factional disputes. She understands why he lacks the manpower to spare, as he's become so busy. Even so, that does not mean the academy should be neglected, and surely he doesn't intend to make that man an instructor here. As they all start glaring at him, Jin sighs, and Argus tells them to put their minds at ease. He is more capable than anyone else in his unit, at least in terms of combat technique. She says that if he says so, then it's probably the truth, and she asks if they're really about to do this. Some dude with a massive schnoz tells her that he objects. In this sacred academy of tradition, it is unprecedented for an inferior species to be allowed to teach. Such a duty is not a position for the likes of someone like him, asking if she's really intending to bring shame upon them. We learn that the dude with the massive schnoz is named Gita, and the fat chud is named Ludman. She asks what he thinks, and Ludman says he agrees with him. The academy is home to many students of noble birth, and if an inferior species were to teach, there would undoubtedly be backlash from both the students and the instructors. The headmaster says that it seems to be the case, and emotionally she feels the same, but she wants to hear their side of the matter as well. Jin steps up, and bows, saying he's sorry for his late introduction. He has come from Kodama village, and he introduces himself to her. She says that even though he was mocked, he remains really composed, and he says he understands her concerns. However, he has a single question. He asks if he's unfit to be an instructor solely based on his species, or if it's because he lacks the ability. She says it's obviously the former, and if one has ability nothing else matters, asking if he can prove that he is what it takes. Argus says in that case they should put it to the test. They take him out to the magic practice field of the academy, and Captain Schnoz says that since today is for the entrance exams, there are almost no students around, and at least he will be spared any public embarrassment. Jin just wonders how long this dude's nose is. The headmaster says the rules are simple. They will fight only using spirit magic. Since he is meant to be a spirit magic instructor, seeing his actual strength is the best way. Other students wonder what's going on, and we see Milia watching while the students gossip about the fight. Jin sighs, saying this is all pointless, and the headmaster says that she just wants to see how much an inferior species can do. Argus is a little nervous, saying that this is actually the first time he's going to see him fight. The physical abilities of an inferior species are low, and even if they possess divine power, they can only manifest a trivial amount of strength. He hopes his assessment was not incorrect. Schnoz asks if he's prepared, and starts to laugh, saying that he'll take the first strike. He sends a massive fireball straight towards Jin. Jin dodges underneath, and the students are impressed by his magic. Schnoz says this is good since some of the students are still watching. Schnoz then prepares lightning this time, and sends 5 attacks toward Jin. Jin flips in the air, getting out of them. Schnoz says that it seems all he can do is flee, and it's typical of his species. He may not have become a holy knight, but he is also a man who graduated as the academy's valedictorian. He sends in another fireball, but this one is much faster than the last. Jin sighs, saying that this power was not meant to be turned against people, but it can't be helped. He stretches his hand out, and starts preparing his own divine power, saying that he'll show them a little of what he can do. The air begins to crackle with a distinct black lightning effect, and a barrier forms around Schnoz. It starts to pressure him into the ground. Damn, I wish that was his nose instead of his chin. The headmaster and Lord Fatass are both surprised, and even Argus is stunned. Milia realizes that she might have made a mistake in her judgment. While Schnoz is sitting there trying to figure out what's going on, Jin says he simply manipulated the gravity around him slightly, asking if this is a spirit magic he's unfamiliar with. It seems there is much for him to teach at this academy, not only to the students, but also to the professors. As he continues increasing the gravity on him, he snaps his finger, and instantly releases it. Schnoz asks what the hell he just did, and Jin says it was spirit magic. Schnoz says he's never heard of spirit magic like that before, and he must have used some underhanded trick. As he continues barking at him, the head instructor says that this settles it. Argus says it indeed does, and the other students are just surprised, wondering what just happened. Even Milia says that was definitely a special type of spirit magic, but how? Because unlike them who evolved after receiving the blessing of spirits, the divine power of inferior species should be practically non-existent. She starts to wonder just who exactly Jin is, while Schnoz is still barking at him. A whole week later, the headmaster says that this academy teaches academic subjects as well, but its true purpose is to train warriors who will defeat the corruptors, and those who cannot keep up will be forced to leave this academy without mercy. But if you graduate from here, joining the Holy Knights won't be just a dream, and everything depends on your ability. Some of the students are talking about how there are a lot of freshmen, and most of them seem to be commoners. However, Milia is sidetracked. Then a man calls out for her. We learn his name is Reyes. He says it's rare for her to show up at the entrance ceremony, and he thought she wasn't interested in other people. She says that he's the same though, and he says that if there's some famous noble among the freshmen, they'd still want to get friendly with them. He then spots something, asking why an inferior species is sitting in the instructor seats. She tells him it's because he is an instructor. He asks if she's serious. She then asks, based on his perspective, what he thinks about that man. Reyes says that even if she asks, that he's just an inferior species. She says that's exactly what she thought too. Jin spots her, then he looks around the room, saying that the academy is huge, and investigating it will take time. Even so, he can feel the gazes of every student. He needs to erase this inferior species image they have, and at this rate he's going to stand out far too much. Instead of investigating, he's going to look like the most suspicious person in the academy, and he needs to earn their recognition. It's now time for the first class of this year. Schnoz says that they will resume the spirit magic lectures starting today, and they need to make sure they don't get overtaken by the freshmen, and not let their guards down. Though for the elite class students this warning might not be necessary, is what he'd like to say, but there are way fewer people today, and he asks if they have any motivation. Milia is there too. Schnoz says he's just glad there aren't many people here, saying it's because they don't want to listen to an inferior species talk after all. He's the one handling today's lecture, and he made sure to spread the word beforehand. Schnoz then tells him to introduce himself. Jin says as they've heard his name is Jin, and regarding spirit magic he'll be teaching them for a while, and he looks forward to working with them. Reyes asks if he can handle the job, and Jin says that's for him to decide. If he thinks it has no value, he doesn't have to attend the class. Reyes says that's really easy. Jin says there's one thing he wants them to follow though. They cannot use this power against people. Spirit magic has the power to hinder the incredible regenerative abilities of the corruptors, however this regenerative inhibition does not activate against the human body. It will simply result in injury. If they want to know why, it's because this power was created to defeat the corruptors, so they cannot misuse it. One of the students laugh, asking if he's stupid, saying power is power. He came to see what kind of lecture an inferior species would give, and he's just telling them not to even use their magic. He's just a powerless person to begin with who doesn't want to be compared to them. All the students start mocking him except for Milia and Reyes. Jin waits a second, and then sighs, saying that if they think he has no power, then try it. The student asks what he means. Jin says he should fire his strongest power at him right now, and if he manages to injure him with it, he promises he won't show up ever again. The student laughs, telling him not to regret it, because it's too late to back down now. As he starts to summon a giant lightning spear. Schnoz tells him to stop, as he's going to get hit too. The dude readies his magic, and yeets it across the class straight towards Jin. It explodes, spreading a massive amount of dust. The student thinks he's won until we see the dagger made out of nanomachines fly out of the smoke, cutting some of his hair off, and piercing the wall behind him. The student looks at it horrified, and Jin says that if he had intended to, that attack would have killed him right there, and judging people by appearances alone can be fatal. Reyes asks what the hell that was. Jin says that they called him an inferior species because they must think he's inferior, but since he's stronger than them, he wants to know what they're going to call him now. He'll give them the answer. It's none other than teacher. Jin then asks the student who attacked him if he knows the conditions to activate spirit magic. The guy doesn't say anything, and Jin reminds him that he attacked him, telling him to answer. The student says that it's just about visualization. You raise your divine power, picture the force you want, project it into the spirits, and manifest it, as that's the basics. Jin tells him that visualization is important, but that's not the condition to activate it. Spirits, or rather nanomachines, just receive a specific wavelength, and only then can they unleash their power. The kid asks what a wavelength is, and Jin says that there are 8 fundamental wavelengths. Fire, lightning, wind, freezing, and they should know up to this point. But in addition to these, there's gravity manipulation, light intensity manipulation, atmospheric pressure manipulation, and the thing he showed earlier, space projection. These are the basics used to apply spirit magic. Schnoz is freaking the fuck out, asking if he can use 8 types of spirit magic. Jin says like how he turned the discharge into a spear, and threw it at him earlier, the visualization is key. And now it's time for them to begin the lesson. After class ends, he's walking down the academy, and says he needs to investigate the academy. But students are walking around everywhere he goes, and he can't find anything suspicious. He needs to find a place where students aren't allowed, because he's the only thing that looks sus right now. He spots Milia, and when he looks over he meets eyes with her. She asks who he really is as he walks past her. He asks if she still thinks he's just an inferior species. She says that she'll admit he's not normal, as there's no way an inferior species could handle all types of spirit magic. He says he taught her earlier in class that anyone can use them if they can switch between wavelengths. She says that he shouldn't say it so easily, and if that were really possible he wouldn't be drawing so much attention. She tells him they should go elsewhere. He follows her to a quieter part of the school, and she asks if he's going to answer her questions now. He says he's just an ancient human who slept in Kodama village for 100 million years. She says that at least he has some jokes. She decides to play along, saying that she wants him to at least answer what he was doing 100 million years ago. He says a lot of things, as he was an agent. She asks what that is, and he says someone who works themselves to the bone for their country. He fought countless villains, and even though it was so long ago he can remember it like it happened yesterday, and it's super nostalgic to him. She asks how someone like him ended up sleeping for so long, then if it's the truth. He says that he failed. He was arrogant enough to think he could handle it all on his own, and as a result he lost everything without being able to do his duty. The reason he took the lecture job was so that if push comes to shove he could count on them to help him. She's still not buying it at all. He then asks where she's headed. She says she's just fulfilling her duty as a guide. She guides him to some old run-down room, and he asks what this is. She says that it's where the lecturers keep the materials for class. He says that it must be a storage room. A weird figurine catches his attention on the shelf. He asks why they are here, and she says that it means she's been doing investigating of her own. There is an unnatural space next to this room, and it's big enough to fit another room inside it. She says that it's suspicious, and there's definitely a hiding spot here. He walks over to the weird figurine, and twists it, revealing a hidden passageway. He says that her deduction was spot on. She asks how he knew about this. He says even though this place is covered in dust that one spot was unnaturally clean, but also he had a bit of intuition born from experience. He says he'll go check out what's inside while she waits here. She tells him to wait since she wants to check it out too. He says that if there's something like a corruptor it'll be dangerous. She tells him not to look down on her, as her grades are among the top in her year, and she possesses skills that are no less than her brother's. He says that he'll trust her then, and he uses light magic to guide them down the stairs. He says the path goes down quite deep. She says that he's low-key just humble bragging that he can use light manipulation for convenience. He says the atmosphere feels something like out of a fantasy game where a monster might pop out. She wonders what a fantasy game is, and then asks about what he said earlier. If it's the truth, and he's been fighting villains all this time, then he must have a target in mind for who's suspicious. He tells her that she's demanding a lot for the first day, but he supposes he does have some ideas. Professor Ludman might be involved. She asks how he can tell. Jin says that he's calm when he's talking, but when he's not talking to anyone his mind drifts elsewhere, as if tracing people forced to do things other than their intended purpose. He's also abnormally guarded, although he tried to pretend he wasn't. She says that she actually thought that Schnoz was the suspicious one. He says that he couldn't pull it off even if he wanted to. His emotions are too easy to read on his face, and there's no way he'd be able to sneak around with a nose that big. But they finally make it to the bottom of the stairs. She says she never expected there to be a space this wide under the academy. He then freezes, and she asks what's wrong. He says he never thought he'd find it in a place like this. It's a door to one of the research labs Kagura left behind. If you've watched till the end, comment, Graves, to let me know. Huge shout out, and a special thanks to my Patreon and channel members. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.